today, and now to tell the story a little bit more in detail about our ministry in John Obi. The keychain that I now handed out, I make a distinction, you see. This one I gave the tool, that's a sermon illustration. So I can give that during the worship. This is an advertisement. Now I'm asking for money, buy something. But anyway, I thought I should. And the interesting thing is, the information on here is really incomplete. The people who did this called and says, we can't put everything on there that you want. And I wanted to never underestimate the difference you make. That's a powerful, powerful statement. And it's so true. And then the information about Safe Place Outreach on the back, and we're going to have the phone number on there so you could text. But she called me when I was in Kansas and said, on my way to Kansas, and she says, we can't get all that on there. And we got to get this done because if you want it in Kansas, so anyway, so I said, okay, just put my email on it. Don't email John because John is busier than me, and I can forward it to John. And then one other thing I just want to mention to you. This is called what did you say it was? Snips. Yeah, well, and now I learned a couple of other things, and I just want you to know that there are some people who pay attention to my messages, and I especially, there are those who critique them. And there's a couple here who critiqued me this morning and made quite a point of that afterwards. And Bev comes up to me and she says, I got a hammer. She says, hammers aren't just for nailing things together. You turn it over and you can use the claws and you can pull the nail out because sometimes things in your life need to come out. And I said, good job. You must talk for a living or something. And then Dennis says, what did you say?
I was helping you.
Yeah, I know, and I forgot. You didn't say it.
Let it lay there or hang there. It's worthless.
Yeah. Did you hear that? I wanted him to say it. He said, it's just laying there. If you just leave your tool laying there, it's worthless. You got to pick it up and put it to use. And same is true of our tools that God gives us. So that's a good illustration. Good. So, okay. John Obi. This has been an amazing year for us at John Obi and very different than planned. A lot of things changed in mid-course. I just want to tell you, we were kind of prepared for it simply by the way we began. This year we went to John Obi with a new addition in our ministry, and that was we were taking two young women with us who are nurses. One is John's daughter, Danielle, and she is an RN, and she's in a master's degree program. She's now a teaching nurse in a college, but also pursuing her master's degree in midwifery. Now, one of the reasons she chose midwifery is because her mother and her dad, prior to her birth, had 3 miscarriages. And learning about that's impacted her life. And she wants to make a difference. So this year, she had never been to Africa. We had some people who donated, especially to send Danielle to Africa. And we went before Christmas because that's when she was off school. And so she could go there. So that was one thing. So Danielle could see and experience. The second thing was, she being a teaching nurse, arrangements were made for her to go to the hospital, the main teaching hospital called Connaught in Freetown. And she went there and she taught some of the nurses. And one of her students is what came with her. So we had 2 young women. People in different parts of the country heard about they wanted to go, and they donated so that they could go. It was wonderful. So then, just before I forget that, Danielle taught there, and she invited me to go to the hospital with her on a couple of occasions, walk through the wards. You know, it's a major hospital for them. And have you been to Connaught Hospital? Have you? It's big, and it's a lot of teaching going on. Well, anyway, I was shocked at what I found because I am rather sheltered in life. And I went to the children's ward. And the ward that I went through, there were beds all lined up like this, but no dividers between them. Bed after bed after bed, probably 12 or 15 on this side. Then there's an aisle here, and then 12 or 15 on that side, but there are no dividers. No curtains hanging to separate. And Danielle says to me, she calls me Grandpa, she says, Grandpa, look at, there are no sheets. Mothers and fathers were there sitting by their children, right next to the bed. No masks, no gloves, no gowns. And it was the whole ward. Danielle was shocked by that because she comes from America where you have everything sanitary, etc. She had been forewarned in advance, so she went to her nursing students, she went to doctors that she works with in the hospital, and she had them go and assist, get people to donate. So she came with boxes of gloves. The nurses had no gloves, no latex gloves. She came with boxes of masks. She came with blood pressure cuffs. They had one for that whole ward. I'm trying to think of some other things she brought. And then, of course, she taught them some things that, techniques that they hadn't known. So her eyes were open, and she was a blessing. Then she came to our clinic. We have the two clinics, you know, one at John Obie and one at York. And she came out there, and I have a bunch of pictures of Danielle ministering to the children. It's just wonderful things. Tiny babies, maybe 2 weeks old. What do you weigh a baby on? A scale. We didn't have any scales. So we have a scale you stand on for adult people. First, she tried laying the baby on there and holding it. It wouldn't register. It was too small. So finally, she holds the baby. She stands on it herself, weighs herself. Then she takes the baby and stands on it and figures out the weight of the baby. And I got pictures of her doing that. And, you know, kids needing to be, have their throats looked at and so forth, and not participating well, and trying to coax them and encourage them to open their mouth. And she had a wonderful experience. And she was a blessing, an enormous blessing. Now, I'll try to briefly mention what happened. Our goal this year was to bring the two girls with us, to invest in them that they might become instruments someday too, in a special way. So that was good. The other thing was we wanted to finish that building insofar as we could. The church meets there every Sunday. There's Bible study in midweek. There's the shelter, especially the shelter for women and children in the rainy season, which is 5 or 6 months. Is that about right? 5 months for rainy season? They keep asking me to go there for rainy season, but I'm afraid I'll get wet. So our goal was to try this year to get that completed. And so, you know, last year we put the wall up and everything, did all that, and got the gate in, and all things are going wonderfully well. And then we had this year we're going to have to plaster the entire building outside, plaster it inside. We needed to do the ceilings upstairs, the ceilings downstairs. We need to put floors in. We needed to do a variety of things like that. We need to put electricity in. We need to put plumbing in, and so forth. So we had a big, big job. And meanwhile, that would be going on, and John would supervise that, and then I would meet with Pastor Ezekiel and Bible studies and so forth. So that was the plan. Well, it didn't get off to a good start, because when we left America, we flew on Royal Moroccan Air. And we flew from New York to Morocco, and that was okay. We got to Morocco. I don't know what time it was, maybe mid-afternoon, and we were supposed to leave Morocco that night at that morning, 1 a.m. the next morning, and fly to Freetown. Well, we went there, and you walk around. You got 6 or 7 hours to walk around, and you do that. And we come back, and there's our gate, A2. So we sat about where you are, and the gate is about Barbara is, not far away, and hang out. And there's a few people around here and there, and 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. They're going to call us now, John. Pay attention. Danielle, pay attention. They're going to call us. Don't fall asleep. Next thing we know, it's 1:30. 1:30? We're supposed to leave at 1:15. No voice, no intercom. I got up, I went to the gate, and I said, when's the flight to Freetown leaving? They said, it left. I said, what? It left 15 minutes ago. I said, well, you didn't call. Well, we never call. We don't do that here. I said, well, wait a minute. When I boarded Royal Moroccan Airlines in New York City, you called and said, flight number so-and-so at gate such and such, at leaving at such and such. We don't do that here. Oh, wow. So now it's 1:30 in the morning, and there's 30 other people who missed the flight too. Now the thing is, how do you get from there to Freetown? Long story short, after much frustration, I was able to get us 4 airline tickets, 4 tickets to Freetown on Sunday. This is Thursday. I had to pay for those tickets again. I said, wait a minute. I paid for that ticket, but you didn't ride it. You didn't fly it. You need a new ticket. Oh, I lost the argument, and I pulled out the Visa card, and, we got 4 new tickets. So that's how it started. Now I've got John, because he flies on Liberian passport, he can't leave the airport. He has to stay in the airport. Yeah, well, the why is this. He flies on Liberian passport. Americans who fly on American passport, when you come to Morocco, your visa is good because you're an American. You're granted it for a number of days. When you come from Liberia, you have to apply for a visa, and it takes a minimum of 3 days. So John was forced to stay. I said, I can't leave these 2 girls sleeping in the airport, so I found a hotel and blah, blah, blah. We went to the hotel and we got a couple of rooms and stayed a couple of nights and blah, blah, blah. So that's how it began. So now the next part is kind of fun because John had made a special arrangement for me that when we got to Freetown this time, we were supposed to arrive on Thursday. Well, on Sunday, I was going to preach in the Crew Methodist Church. It's a Crew tribe. And it's the oldest Methodist Crew church in Freetown. And he had made arrangements, this is the Sunday right after Christmas, he had made arrangements for me to preach there because they were having a fundraising event. And they were raising money to establish a ministry center in Freetown from which they would minister to the community. And that was the fundraiser. So John had made that opportunity for me. And the interesting thing was, I couldn't make it. Sunday morning, the church service was going to start at 10, and I'm still in Morocco. And I'm not a young kid anymore. I'm tired. And so John calls Freetown and he says, I'm sorry, but Pastor Tom, he can't preach. He won't be coming to preach. We have to respect the gentleman for his age and all these nice things. So he canceled the preaching. We got on the airplane at 1 or 1:30 Sunday morning. We flew. We got to the airport, and then got on the boat and came across to Freetown. And I got to the hotel, the Swiss hotel. I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning. We had flown all night and whatever. So I arrived there, and I said to John, I said, how far is it to the Crew Church? He said, oh, about 15 minutes. He says, I canceled it. You're not going. I said, John, I'll bet you, if you just give me 10 minutes to take a shower and change my clothes, I'll bet we can make it. So we had a little argument, and the senior citizen won. So we arrived there. And it was an amazing experience. We arrived there, and we even beat the pastor. And it was so funny. Anyway, we were there, and as I got up to preach that morning, I looked in the congregation. And to my delight, I looked out there, and there was Kofi and his wife. He's the chaplain of the Mercy Ship. There he was, and the two of them were sitting there. Also sitting in the crowd, pardon me, this hasn't changed, it remains with me. Also sitting in the crowd is Dennis. I didn't know Dennis went to that church. I knew he was a Christian, but Dennis was the contractor for our wall and the gate and everything out at John Oak. There's Dennis and his family. Oh, man, and other people. And I looked at, there's Christiana. She's the nurse who came and said, we can do a clinic. There she is sitting there. There's Maureen. Now, Maureen is not a Christian. I had met Maureen the first the first year we were in Sierra Leone. And we stayed at a different hotel. And at that hotel, she was the assistant manager. I met her. And I never met her. And anyway, wonderful woman. Well, I don't know if you remember the story. We had to leave that hotel after 1 week because they had decided to renovate everything 2 months early. So we were kicked out. But I had met Maureen. I had given her our Bible. And we were supposed to have talked sometime. Well, never did because of that. But there she was. Well, she's also, I had met her last year again because when the hotel was closed, Maureen became the supervisor or in charge of, just a minute, you'll be able to help me here. Brenda, what do you call that boat you take from the island to the airport and back? Not the ferry, sea coach.
Oh, yeah.
She is now in charge of sea coach transportation. So for the last times we go there, we get off the airport, she meets us right there where all the luggage comes in, and there's Maureen. Calls me by name, we talk, so forth. This year too, well, this year she came to church. A thrill. So things started not the way we planned, but it was good. Okay, so what's happened in the ministry? The wall is up. The gate is there. It's enormous. It is enormous. It keeps things and people out, except we have the neighbor's wall, which has fallen down, I told you about before, and the back half of it is down. So thank you. And that's got to be done. So this year, we didn't make as much progress as quickly as we thought because they were running out of cement in Sierra Leone. But God had provided us a man. I may have told you about him before. His name is Aaron. And Aaron is from India, and he's a Muslim. And in Sierra Leone, the economy runs on a cash basis. So we were led to Aaron, and he, by the grace and goodness of God, would extend credit to us. And it's been happening that way all 3 years I've been there. This past year, he said, there's a shortage of cement, and it's going to be critical very, very soon. I suggest that you order your cement now, even though I may not have it. And I promise you, I will give it to you at the cost you order of the day you order it. Well, they ran out of cement. We had ordered it, a lot of it. And by the time the cement arrived, a number of weeks later, it had gone up 30%. He honored his word. That was a gift of God. That was just God. We know it was God. He led us to other contractors and so forth. So we had good contractors. Sometimes you don't get such good ones. But Aaron has done that. So we borrow on credit. We get funds, we hope and pray. We pay them off, and so forth, and go and we pay. So now we're trying to get all the electrical wiring done in that building. We're trying to get the ceilings completed. We're trying to get all the walls finished. Now they're all, everything has been plastered, so that's all done. And right now, this past week, the last couple weeks, they're putting in ceiling. It's fun to watch them put the ceiling. It's just a wonderful thing. But we also had, if you're going to put the ceiling in, Aaron says, you better put the electric in. You better do it. Before you get that ceiling, you better do it. We don't have the money. I'll front you the money. And this moves my heart because he is not a Christian. We owe him right now, John told me this week, $17,000. I've got all the electrical wiring, all the electrical boxes and whatever else. I don't know what electric, it's all there. I got pictures of it's all there. And they're already starting, they got whatever you put in order to hang your ceiling. All that's going up now. And drywall and all this stuff is going in. And we owe him $17,000. John, the reason I tell you that is because John, what was it, Aaron, Thursday? Anyway, very recently, John said, Tom, we need some money. Aaron just called. And that's how I said, well, how much do we owe him? And he says, well, we owe him $14,500 and we owe $2,500 to the workers. And the workers are walking off the job. They want to get paid. I don't blame them. So that's what's going on, and it slowed things down. But God provided our own, and we got stuff going. It's happening. Now, what else is happening? This, again, when God opens a pathway for you, and he says, go into it, and you go, and you see him open up doors. Us coming to Pella was a door opening for us years ago. We know that. Me and we know that. We talk about it all the time. When Jackson Lee came into our church building in December of 1999, that was God. I didn't know it was God, but it was God. Now we know. We see it very clearly. Jackson is the one who led us to John, and John led us to Sierra Leone and ministry. It's all God. So God is at work. And as I told you before, we had planned originally, I was going to go and teach pastors. And you gave me Bibles and stuff to share with pastors I was going to teach. And the man who was supposed to arrange it did not do it. You remember that story? Pastor Bander. He did not do it. And that's just before we got there. That was the first year I went. Well, we prayed about it and so on, and God sent us a deliverer. The deliverer's name, I told you, was Moses. Pastor Moses Jara, president of the Christian Reformed Church of Sierra Leone. Never met the guy before, but he became God's instrument to help us. And I told you that story. And as a result, he provided for us. Now, ever since then, when John Wah is working out at John Obie, overseeing construction and various things like that, I, by the grace of God, get to go serve the Christian Reformed Church of Sierra Leone. The first 2 years, I went for a week to teach the pastors. This year, I went for 8 days. teaching the pastors. And not knowing I'm going to be blessed, I use my wrench or my hammer and I offer it. This year, I taught on the book of Jonah. Took a long time to teach on Jonah. And many things happened. About the third day in the morning, I was there. It was my third morning to teach. And the night before, which would have been Tuesday night, our daughter Lori, texted me from Tennessee. And that text was this: Dad, pray for me. I think it's back. Cancer. She had been under treatment, 8 months, whatever. And that hit me like a brick. Man, I'm way over here. So that morning, I'm going to teach. And after the worship time, okay, my turn now, and I get up and I look at the brothers just like you're sitting like this. And I say to them, I says, I need help. I need help today. And then I said, our daughter Lori, texted me last night and told me she thinks the cancer is back. And she's afraid. And I said, I need prayer. I need prayer. And my daughter needs prayer. And these people jumped up. They stood up. And some of them came and laid hands on me. And one man, right over there, he stood up and he began to pray. He began to pray as only a man of God can pray from a different culture. He cried out to God on behalf of me and our daughter. And then all the brothers were there, and some of the sisters were there. They all began to pray, and we prayed, and we prayed, and we prayed. I don't know how long, 15 minutes, a long time. Hands on me. What an experience, a gift to me. Ministered to in a very unique way. And by the way, I can report to you, she found out later the next week that it was not cancer returning. It was something else that could easily be dealt with, but it wasn't cancer. Yes. What a thing. What a story. Ministered to. So the privilege there was for 8 days I teach and we worship and so forth. And then the last day, this is again, I got touched. And this so often happens when you've given something, God surprises you with something in return. The man who was the MC, the pastor was closing the whole seminar. It was all done. Thanking people and so forth and so on. And then I'm sitting here and everybody's, and he turns to me and he says, Pastor Tom, you taught us about Jonah. And you said that God would send fish in our life to spare them, spare us, like he spared Jonah. The fish was a ministering servant to Jonah on behalf of God. And then he said, Pastor Tom, you are my fish. And he said nothing else. It was just deathly silent. Amazing. And I share those stories with you, not so much about me, but that message about when you offer something, God will respond and bless you back. And he'll bless others when you don't even know how they're being blessed. Amazing. Amazing. And now I'm going to tell another story, and I trust you with this story. I trust you. Before I leave for Sierra Leone, of course, Aaron and I pray a lot about that whole thing. I've only told this story once before, so we pray together and say, maybe we should be prepared with some kind of a tool. Somebody may need a tool from us, an instrument. God may bring somebody to us that needs something. We agreed. So we took out a pretty good size of money, amount of money, I mean, and I put it in the back side of my pouch in case God would bring somebody to us who might need it. About early on in our visit, I think it was just before the pastors' conference, but anyway, the year before I had met with a pastor, and he asked me to pray for his wife because she had needed surgeries for some female reproductive issues. And that was, so I was there in February the year before, and she needed surgery. Well, they didn't have the money, and they were trying to save the money. So when I was there, prior to the pastor's conference, I called him. And I just said, Pastor, how did the surgery go for your wife? How was she doing? He said, she didn't have it. I said, well, why not? We still haven't raised enough money. And I said, oh, where are you? He said, I'm right here in Freetown. As a matter of fact, he says, I'm at Connaught Hospital right now. I'm there for another reason, though. My mother-in-law has gangrene. And the doctor said, that leg has to come off just below the knee, or she's going to die. And we don't have the money for that. I'm sitting by the swimming pool talking to Dr. Kanta. And I tell Dr. Kanta what I just heard on the phone from this pastor. And the pastor had sent me a picture on my phone, texted me a picture. And I showed it to Pastor Kanta. He looked at it, he said, oh, that's bad. That's got to come off for sure. So I spoke to the pastor on the phone, and I said, I'm here at Swiss Hotel. I'm by the swimming pool in the eating area there. And I'm sitting there, and come on over. He said, I'll be there in 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, he came. We talked. We prayed. And God said, that's for whom the money is. So I asked him, how much does it cost to get that surgery for your mother-in-law? And he told me. And then this much to stay and so forth. And I said, and what about the amount for your wife? He said, well, that'll be this much more in a couple of days and so forth. And this is how much it'll cost. Guess what I had in my pouch? Enough. Enough. That's the man who closed the meeting and pointed to me and said, you are my fish. I had no idea. And I share that story with you simply to say, to be available. And then to trust God to step out. So wonderful. It's wonderful. And that's the only reason I share it. Because we're no different than you. We just want to serve too. We sang, I love to tell the story of Jesus and his love. So that was part of the ministry this year, unexpected part, unplanned. And then Pastor Moses, bless his heart, he says, when we're way over in Kabbalah, far into the country, he says, I know you want to go visit some of the villages where the Christian Reformed Church ministers way back. He said, I've made arrangements. We'll go. So Sunday morning, I forget how early we left. We left pretty early in the morning, and we rode in a four-wheel vehicle high center, you know. He says, this is going to be a long road. It's going to be a long trip. It's going to be 3.5 hours, he said, and this what we're going to be riding on is not roads. We're going to be riding on rocks and climbing on stuff that people are not supposed to climb on, especially in vehicles. And we're going to go over bridges you don't want to look down. Just trust me. For 3.5 hours, we went back. I don't know the name of the town, of the village. It was about that long of a name. But back there, way back, is a Christian Reformed ministry. And he had alerted the pastor that we will be coming. They have a Christian school there. And as we came, finally making our way there, we're on this dirt-type road, and lined up on the sides, of both sides, are children. 200, a lot of children, all dressed in pink uniforms. And they're singing, we welcome you in Jesus' name, we welcome you in Jesus' name. And they sang the song of welcome. All these kids on a Sunday morning. What a delight. I preached there in a wonderful service. Do you remember the time I gave, out here, I gave some compasses? Did I give compasses here, right? Well, I just happened to have a few with me. A flashlight and a compass and a whistle. So I had enough. I didn't run out. I had enough for all the people there. And it was quite fun, especially when they start blowing the whistle and the kids don't want to stop. But it was a wonderful worship service. I had a great time with them. And then after the service, we gathered at the Christian school. And all these kids were in lines, lined up. And we passed out candy and stuff to all the kids, and they sang to us. Now, one of the treats that day was assembled there by me were the Christian Reformed, 2 or 3 Christian Reformed pastors and a couple of teachers from the Christian school, and 4 Indian chiefs, 4 chiefs. They sat beside me, and then one of the chiefs got up and gave me a nut. And I don't know what kind of nut it is, but it's a nice nut. And he gave it to me, and he said, Pastor, I give you this nut to welcome you into our village. I kept that nut. The treasure. And then some more singing about the kids and so on. And then another chief got up and approached me with a chicken, a live chicken. And it was a beautiful chicken. And gave me this chicken and said, Pastor Tom, you've been welcomed into our community, and this chicken is given to you because you're one of us. And now I have a live chicken. Now that's a gift. It's an amazing thing to be welcomed. What did I do with the chicken? Everybody always asks them, what did you do with the chicken? I gave it to the Christian school teacher. That was a highlight. The same thing happened to me at another place where the Christian Reformed Church was establishing another school. It was a brand new school. It was just being opened. And I was invited with Pastor Moses to go there and help dedicate the school and the facility. This was in the middle of a field. The closest village was 2 miles that way, but there was another village 2 miles that way, and in the center was a Christian school. Established, built, and prepared, and all the staff were from the Christian Reformed Church of Sierra Leone. Brand new. And I got to stand up there too and offer a prayer of dedication for a brand new facility. Now I share this story too because I want you to know the Christian Reformed Church in Sierra Leone is on fire for the Lord Jesus Christ. They're dynamic. They step way out in faith, way out in faith. And they just trust God. And sometimes they have to wait for the resources. We were riding in this Toyota 4x, whatever you call it, big Land Cruiser, I think they call it. Anyway, this thing was older than the hills. This is so old. And we had to stop a number of times and kick something or whatever they did, open the hood, and, and then you'd go again and so forth. And you're driving along, and then all of a sudden it pops out of gear, And so this is a story. Pastor Moses says, we had ridden in that vehicle before, so as we were riding this time, he says, we've been praying for a new Land Cruiser. How much did it cost? $100,000. Well, good luck. You know what? I saw the delivery of that Land Cruiser. I saw the delivery. I wasn't able to ride in it because it came about the day we were leaving, but there it was, parked in the parking lot, and Moses took me out there to sit in it. I prayed it in. People from Canada, United States, the Netherlands gave money. And opportunities that people see to be a blessing. And you guys are a blessing. You're a blessing to us and to that ministry. So my dream, of course, I'm like Moses sometimes, and I say, well, Moses, God, I'm 80 years old plus. And Moses said, hey, God, you got to be aware how old I am. And God says, you got 40 more years left, so. I better not say anything on that, but I shouldn't have. So, my dream, however many years God gives me yet to minister, I don't know. Nor do you know. I'm no different than you. But I would like to, by the grace of God, at least be able to see our building completed. We're working on it, and the dream, the prayers will get it done by the end of this year. That's our dream. And I pray we will. We're hoping to have it done before the rainy season because that creates all kinds of problems. But we'll see what God has. And that's one of my dreams, that would happen. And maybe so. Let me tell you one other just ministry story. This is just because it's fun. I told you this a couple years ago. Oh, wait, no, I got to back up. Another God story, which is very important. I wrote to you, I think, about the railing, the little child falling off the balcony. You know about that? Did I tell you about the resolution? The child fell off the balcony because we weren't doing good supervision, I guess. And thankfully, the pickup truck that we had donated last year, it had arrived in the fall, the pickup truck was there on that Sunday, this past fall. And this child fell off the balcony, and they rushed the child all the way to Freetown. Thankfully, there was one vehicle there. It was the one donated by a couple in California, and it was sitting there because Elizabeth and so on had come. So they took it. Okay. But now we have this open balcony upstairs and back in the front and on the down level, and then we have this open staircase, which is terrifying. I would walk up this open staircase, this is the honest truth, and I'd walk up with my hand against the wall because the steps were so bad, and I just didn't. But now I got to turn. And the next floor is here, and this is all open. And I reach up on the floor, and I make my way up to the top, and I get up there, and hopefully then somebody will grab my hand, and up we go, wide open. So anyway, we put out a plea when that child fell, and thank God didn't get hurt seriously. Put out a plea. I said, if you can help us, put in a railing. We need your help now. And this is the truth, no exaggeration. 5 minutes later, I had a couple from Austin, Texas, write and say, it's covered. I didn't even have a figure. They just said, it's covered. Whatever it costs, it's covered. Wow, does that move your heart? Now, we just finally, that was in January, I think, when I put that plea out. The railings are up now. This is how long it takes. And the railing on the stairs, it's in. It just needs to be painted and so forth yet. That's how long it took. But it's done. I had to tell other people who responded afterwards, thanks for the offer, but it's taken care of. To be a part of that is just so humbling. It is so humbling. And then one final story. I told you, again, a couple of years ago about needing a motorcycle. I told you that story. Well, here's the part that I didn't tell you. I've not only seen the motorcycle, but I've seen Pastor Ezekiel get on it, and he's about 26 maybe, and he sits up on the tank of the motorcycle. And then I watched, and behind him, Mr. Kamir, he gets on. He's 79 years old. He swings his leg over, and he hangs on behind Ezekiel. Then, Mr. Kamara, who's 84 years old, he gets on back, the third one on this motorcycle. And you see those people ride out of that pretend road, and they go 20 miles to our clinic, where these two elderly men receive some attention. Now, if that isn't a sight, I don't know what is. But that was made possible again because somebody has said, I'd like to help. And I think I told you last time, since then we bought 2 more motorcycles by donation. And people just say, how can I help? I call Moses. What do you need? You help us. How can we help you? And that's the joy. Now, the other thing I hope to complete this year, by the grace of God, we have learned that John Wah and I cannot supervise a ministry very effectively from thousands of miles away. You can't do that. Too much distance. We try our best. And so we've come to realize this past year when we were there, we have to find a transfer of that ministry to somebody on site who lives there, who knows the culture, knows it, etc. I said, why do you think Pastor Moses was brought into our life? So now, we have met with Pastor Moses before we left. I met with Pastor Moses, was it last night, Aaron, on the phone again? I think it was. No, it was Ezekiel last night and Moses the day before, and John. Follow up on our conversation we had in February. And we are in the midst of transferring, by the grace of God, this ministry to the care and the keeping of the Christian Reformed Church of Sierra Leone. They have a tremendously well-established, well-formulated structure that they can help pastors. They're given to ministry. They're given to evangelism. And they've showed us how they do it. And they like what we've begun. And so by the grace of God, we hope that our little ministry will become part of the Christian Reformed Church of Sierra Leone in 2027. That's a wonderful thing. What a wonderful thing. And it started because we had a problem. We had a problem. A man failed us. And God said, I'm not done. So I wish that you would pray for that the ministry, that transfer can happen, that it would happen well, and that it would be blessed by God. And then at that point, of course, we want to continue on encouraging the establishment of the clinics to be more solid. One last thing, I guess I keep adding last things because there's so much more. I mentioned to you that Dr. Conta was at the table with me at the Swiss Hotel. Dr. Conta. Dr. Conta came into our life too unexpectedly. Dr. Conta is in charge of family health at the Connaught Hospital. He's also a government supervisory position on the establishment of new hospitals in the country. Dr. Conta came to our Christmas party. He was at the beach with us when he saw us give the gifts you gave. Dr. Conta then, having heard, of course, about our ministry, he went to see our facility. He liked it. I was meeting with him again that day that this pastor came to talk to me. And what Dr. Conta wants to do, he wants to take our John Obey Clinic and expand it to become what he calls a transfer hospital. Really, it's better put, I call it a transfer clinic, where you have doctors on call on a rotation basis, where people can come and get basic medical care and so on, much more than we can as a little clinic, and then they can transfer them all the way to Freetown. That's what he wants us to do. I'll be honest with you, that's out of my league. I'm still working on the possibility of faith, thinking that God, I don't know, but and just how God brings people in and pushes you somewhere and sees how you're going to respond. So that's laying out there. Now, I talked a lot longer than I'm supposed to, probably, but I don't know, I like it. Any questions quickly? Joyce.
If the ministry gets transferred into Christian Reformed Church, does that include the clinics or is that a separate thing?
The clinics technically will be separate, technically. But it's like hand in glove. The clinics are a ministering agent of the church for the church in the name of Christ. So we don't know how that's going to look exactly, because that's part of what Moses is going to help us with, because we have contacts for the establishment of the clinic and the continuance of the clinic. The government doesn't help much. So I don't know how that's going to look exactly, but they're not going to drop. And we have two. But I have to confess to you, by the way, thank you for the gifts for the ladies' Bible study. John contacted me yesterday and said thank you because he just received the gift that you sent. And we had to close. We weren't able to hold the clinic at York for the last 2 months because we didn't have enough funds to supply supplies and so forth. So when we get enough money to have supplies again, then we will open York again. But right now, some of those people who have serious needs, we transport. Ezekiel goes and gets them on the motorbike, or if our Toyota is available that's out there, then they go and put people in the back in the bed of the truck, and we try to help and minister. So thank you.
So as a mission team, we kind of talk about what is the greatest need that you have if we were to have like a special collection, or, you know, because you mentioned like bicycles, clothes, toys and stuff for the kids, but also the medical needs. So which is the greater of the two that and most
Okay,
that
that's,
you need
yeah.
first?
Okay. Immediately, we need to pay off Aaron.
Okay.
We've strung him along a bit, and he's But we need to take care of that. And I think after that, the amount we need to finish the structure, I think it's somewhat minimal, I think. But we really want to take care of him. Then after that, our clinic needs are being met by Kansas. Did I tell you about the Kansas thing? I told you. In a nutshell. In Kansas, a hospital has been replaced. An old hospital has been replaced by a new one. And it just so happens a minister of the Christian Reformed Church in Dispatch, Kansas, is the president, or whatever he is, CEO, of a company in Osborne, Kansas, which purchased the old hospital, and they're going to redo it into housing for employees. He gets all the stuff. I mean, his company gets all that old hospital equipment. Guess who he turned to give it to? John Obie. So now, a lot of things we were concerned about. Sheets, pillowcases, gauze. I mean, there's all these small package items. There's a lot of them there. And they're going to John Obie. Now, there's going to be more than we can use. So we've told Dr. Conta from Connaught Hospital, we're going to have stuff. Would you like them? He said, yes. We can use whatever you can share. So we got boxes of sheets. Well, you got 3 beds. Oh, so we got 3 beds coming. We got stands to hold IVs and all kinds of stuff coming. And we're going to ship. So, and I think I wrote to you, that shipment is going, we hope, in June. In June, yeah. I think the 3rd week of June or the last week of June. So we're going to have a container full. We got some beds, all these kinds of things. We don't have electricity at John Obie. But a young man from Kansas, this past week, donated a diesel generator. He traveled last Saturday. He and his dad traveled 100 miles to Hutchinson, Kansas, picked this thing up, brought it back to somebody's facility where they're going to go through it, make sure it's in perfect condition, and then they're shipping it. It might come through Pella if you have things that might join.
Still in discussion.
And then on to Pennsylvania. So clinic stuff in the sense of physical things, I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot. But what we always need money for the various kinds of vitamins, diabetes issues. Diabetes is a terrible thing. As a matter of fact, John Waugh was close to death when he got home because of a diabetes issue. Pastor Ezekiel has diabetes severely, and they were afraid he was going blind. And they got him to a clinic and so forth. So I guess that's under control, I guess. But medications and that kind of thing for the clinic are always ongoing.
And that would be money so that you can buy it through the government pharmacy.
Right, government pharmacy, yeah. And that saves us a lot of money because they licensed us. So that's always an issue. We have at this point, independent people paying for Pastor Ezekiel's salary. He's covered at this point, but that's not going to be permanent. We're working to make him be self-sustaining as the whole congregation. That's the way the goal is. And we're also training people to have small micro farms and micro businesses to be self-sustaining. So ministry continues. So we can always use money for that. Transportation costs, of course, but that's it. Anybody else? Yeah. Well, I have to share one final stretch for you. I told you about the hospital, but this one now comes close to home because somebody from this congregation, after church today, talked to me. And they said, what do you do for volunteers? Volunteers. Glad you brought it up. We have a dream. A dream is that property next door where the walls have all fallen down. We have a little dream been placed in our little faith nodule here that we'll be able to buy that piece of property and then put up another building, which would be right next to the one we have. And this one would be a combination, multi-purpose church facility and school. Christian schools, the Christian Reformed Church has 17 Christian schools. They're marvelous ministering tools. So, they're good at that. So the little dream is put up another building next door. So now you got your medical facility, you got your clinic, you got a place for worship now, you've got the shelter for women and children, and next door you have an all-purpose building that you worship in it, and you have a school. And then on the upper level, you have 3 or 4 small hotel-sized rooms. And then you have a small a small kitchen. And volunteers come over and they stay up there and they cook together in the kitchen prepared. You save on all that hotel expenses like I have. You save on all that restaurant expense. And you have people coming. They serve. And somebody else comes. Now, I share that with you because somebody from this church asked about that. How could somebody come and serve and volunteer? Well, glad you asked. So, it's on anything what God can open up. And the others are. Okay. Let me close in prayer. Father God, thank you for this congregation, for the privilege of being called children of God. Thank you. Thank you for entrusting us with the gospel of Jesus Christ and the ministry of reconciliation, and for using us in a multitude of ways. Thank you for this people. Thank you for the gifts you've given to us. Thank you for our vision. Thank you, Father, Lord God, for even that faith, though sometimes falters, is from you. To you be the glory. Bless, we pray, the ministry at John Obie, I pray, and we'll give you the glory. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.